This is a series of 4 videos that talks about how to use basals effectively. And it starts with a definition, but first of all, what is the purpose of a reading program? The big picture. We want students to be able to read and enjoy stories, just like adults do. That's why we do this thing called reading instruction. We also want them to be able to read and understand expository text, to be able to retrieve information. That's just like adults do. That's why we teach reading. Everything we do should support those 2 purposes and nothing more. So, first of all, what is a basal? Allegedly, it is a complete reading program. Everything you need to teach reading, or so they say. It contains a teacher's manual that tells you exactly what to teach, how to teach, and when to teach it. Isn't that lovely? There is a scope and sequence of skills that tells you what skills to teach and in what order. Even though they don't know your students, they, the publishers of the textbook, are telling you what skills they need. How is that possible? They must be psychic to know what skills your students need. There is a workbook, usually contained in a basal, that has worksheets. Usually it's work on word identification skills. They are consumable. Usually they are done as seat work, meaning keep students busy at their seat while you're doing stuff with your small group. There are comprehension worksheets that are really remembering worksheets. They do absolutely nothing to help students comprehend the story. And there are vocabulary worksheets that do absolutely nothing to move new words into students' productive vocabulary. But there you have it. That's what is in a basal, generally. However, a basal is a tool. The effectiveness depends on the teacher. A good teacher can make it work. Really, they can. However, they are not a miracle cure. There's no such thing as the reading program. There's no one strategy or program or anything that works with all students because why? Why is that? Because human beings are not standardized entities. We do not learn in the same way. So, with any program, no matter what it is, they are to be adopted and adapted. These are not inerrant pieces of Holy Scriptures, not something to be obeyed and mindlessly followed. You are creative and intelligent teachers. We want creative, intelligent teachers, so please be creative, be intelligent, adopt and adapt. Now, we should be very wary of educational decisions made at the federal level. The federal government should stick to government things, including intruding into state and local school district decisions. We do not want to move towards a national curriculum of any kind. The federal government has put together panels and groups, and they've made decisions. Here are some of them that the government has put together. The 2 most famous is the National Reading Panel, put together a panel of experts. Of course, they did not include any experts in reading research. How is that? They used people from the National Institute of Health and Human Development. Same with No Child Left Behind. There is no research to support it, but yet they continue to mandate it. That's why we should be very afraid when the federal government gets involved in educational decisions. Why? Because they rely on I think-isms and not on a body of research or research-based theory. With these, there's no peer review. When we look at research and research-based theory, one thing that marks it is subjected to peer review. Anytime there is a new study or a piece of research, to be research, we have to present it before a jury of our peers for it to be accepted. There are 2 organizations, however, that can be trusted. Now, It's silly that these are not consulted when making federal mandate, but that's the way the federal government works. The International Reading Association started in 1956, 50 years old, all right? It contains thousands of teachers, scholars, writers, and researchers. They're not motivated by profit. They're motivated to find the best instructional methods in literacy. The same with the National Councils of Teachers of English. Been around 100 years, still going strong. Researchers, scholars trying to find out how children learn to read and write and how best to teach reading. The government talks about scientifically based reading program. Reading First legislation even demands that reading programs in kindergarten through grade 3 be scientifically based. Again, the government really should stay out of education. It sounds good, scientifically based, but let's unpack that term. What do they mean? It's one of those feel-good expressions. When we look at educational research, it's complex and multifaceted. There is no such thing as the scientific methods. There are many methods of science. People unfamiliar with educational research think that scientifically based research is only the kind that has controlled experiments, a control and experiment group. Anything else isn't scientifically based. Well, that's poppycock. That shows a gross ignorance of what educational research is and what research is in general. I would highly recommend anyone who makes decisions about educational programs, especially at the state and federal level, at least read a book about educational research. And here's some you can look at. Stop the video and look at these. Research is a tool to create theories. Every bit of research is a bit of data, and a theory is like a dot-to-dot picture that connects the data points. So we rely on research to inform our educational decisions, and we rely on research-based theory. And just as there are different types of research, there are different types of theory. But what decides a theory is that they look at data, at information, and they create a picture based on that. All right, this is part 1, just presenting a general overview of using basals effectively.